Hey everyone, my name is Timothy Harris, and today I'm here at UC Berkeley with Dr. Eva Nogales. Dr. Nogales is a researcher that focuses on the cell biology of the eukaryotic cell. So Dr. Nogales, who are you and what do you do?
All right, so Timothy, I'm a professor here at UC Berkeley, the Department of Molecular and Cell Biology, but I'm also affiliated with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where I am a senior faculty scientist, and I'm also a Howard Hughes Medical Institute investigator. And what I do is apart from teaching here at Cal, I have a group of young scientists in my lab, and we like to study how the molecules that make up our cells and our bodies work at the molecular level, so that we understand the physics and chemistry that is behind what we know as life.
So why is your research important?
Well, it is important for two reasons. One is that we humans are curious and we are interested in knowing the world around us, but we are even more interested in knowing how we ourselves work. How are the cells and the tissues that make up our body function? What are the origin of diseases? How do we go about fighting them? So the kind of work that I do allow us to understand the fundamental principles behind our cells and our different organs. And they also teach us how different human mutations can affect that, giving rise to disease, or how we can use the properties of the molecules that make up our cells to actually fight those diseases through the design of pharmacological agents. So I think because of all of that, both the curiosity, fundamental component, and the applicability of our research, I think what we do is important. Yeah.
I see. So there's a billionaire, Dan Pena, he says a concept known as analysis by paralysis, which means you overanalyze things. And then there's another side of the spectrum called, I want to wait for the right timing and I want to make sure I get things right. Which end of the spectrum do you see yourself as?
Yeah, so definitely not by paralysis. I'm an action person and driven by curiosity and by the thirst to make discoveries. I'm proactive. It is true that there are certain circumstances where what is around you, especially in terms of technologies that are being developed, are able to open new venues for your research. So I'm alert for those opportunities, but it doesn't mean that I'm paralyzed and not doing things when in the meantime, with whatever tools I have to carry out my research.
I see. So what's your guilty pleasure?
So I suppose when I'm not working, I like to take walks in the beautiful nature that we have around Berkeley. I suppose that's not very guilty, it's a very healthy pleasure. So I would say I love to eat wonderful food, accompanied by beautiful wine. So just take it easy from time to time with my family and friends.
I got you. So within the next 5 years, where do you want to see your research at?
I would like to increase the complexity and the understanding of the systems that we study, so that we can approach the complexity of what exists in the cell. So one of the things that I could tell you is that the research that we do is called reductionist. We simplify what we study in order to be able to understand it in great detail. But there is also, a desire to add components that are regulatory in nature. It's like having a very, very basic piece of machinery that then you add to do more and more complex things. The cell is very complicated. We reduce it to small pieces, but we want to see how these pieces click together to get a better understanding of that functioning that occurs inside the cell. So that's what I would like to do. I would like to increase the complexity of what I study so that I get closer and closer to how things work in our bodies. And I also closer and closer to understand again disease and how to fight it through that knowledge.
What allows you to wake up every day and keep keep researching every day and not find a new job.
Yeah, because I love what I do. I love the process of research, of fighting the unknown, of pushing the barriers of knowledge, and doing that actually with young people like the graduate students and the postdocs that work in my lab, the undergraduates that also come and do their first practices at science. It's just very exciting. It's just I'm always surrounded by young people that are making discoveries, that have ideas that I can discuss with them. It is just a very exciting career where every day is different, and it has very many facets that are always very interesting.
What advice do you have for a younger generation STEM scientist that is contemplating whether to make the decision to pursue a career in science?
If they already have that interest, what I recommend to them is that they gain experience as soon as possible, that they try to see what it is like to be a scientist, maybe with hands-on experience through internships or even talking to scientists, attending lectures that are given at their institutions, or even right now with all the incredible amount of virtual material that has been recorded, that they just explore, that get to know what is the most exciting science that is happening right now, but also what it is like to be a scientist, what it is like the day-to-day. If they can get hands-on experience, that would be fantastic, just to have a taste.
I see. So what's your experience with rejection in the sciences, and how has it made you better, or how has it influenced you?
So I imagine you are talking about rejection of our papers, for example?
Rejection at any point throughout science,
yeah,
or
who
failure.
Likes rejection? No one likes rejection. Failure is a day-to-day. So when you're doing things that have never done before, you are going to encounter failure. As long as you learn from your failure, that's exactly what the life of a scientist is. So failure that takes you a step farther, in the sense of teaching you something, is a failure, but just in a positive way. And we just have to accept it and build on it. Obviously, failure that keeps on repeating leads to frustration, and absolutely no one likes that. I think there is almost an art to learn to recognize where the continuous failure means that maybe you're not going the right way, or you're not asking the right question, or maybe you have to wait until the right technology is there. And just to learn to distinguish that and know how to move on is very important. Rejection happens from time to time. For example, all scientists, when they finish a piece of work, write it down and send it to a journal. And depending on the editor or the reviewers, they may decide that the work is complete and accept it and publish it, or they may reject it, in which case, if they give us positive criticism, we can improve on it and try again. It's a little bit like what I was telling you with the experiments. They may not work, but if we learn from them, this is the way we progress. So we learn to accept failure and reject, build on it, be positive, and move forward.
I got you. How did coming from Spain and now living in America, how did that influence your background in science?
Yeah, well, so, one thing to keep in mind is that for people that left the comfort of their country, their culture, their family, their traditions to move somewhere else already says something about them, how driven they are, what their priorities are. So I think already it selects for certain type of people that are prepared to take risks and to explore new things. I think it's also enriching, so something that is really benefit for teams, whether it's in science or on anything else that are facing challenges, is to have very different perspective. So people that come from different cultures, have different educations, they have different ways of seeing things, are much better when they work together to kind of complement one another and to come up with new ideas. If everybody came from the same place, studied the same thing, do the same thing, approach a problem in the same way, having 4 or 5 or 6 people will not make a difference. But if you have diversity of thought, diversity of ways of approaching questions and challenges, that is fantastic for a team because it really acts synergistically. So I think it's nice for me to come from Spain and others to come from China and others to come from, Tunisia, whatever, or certainly from many different in the United States to work together and bring our own perspective of things. So I hope that I brought that, my own style, the Spanish Mediterranean kind of passionate style of doing things.
I got you. Can you dance?
I can dance. Yeah. I have very good sense of rhythm. I can dance Spanish things. When I was in England doing my PhD, I learned Morris dancing and I did the solos. There was a time when I have more time that I did ballroom dancing with my husband. Maybe one day we will retake it, but if I have an opportunity to dance, I dance. And I have no sense of embarrassment. If I'm the only person dancing on the dance floor, it's fine with me, more space for me. Yes, I can dance and I do whatever I can.
Okay. What do you think makes you a good mentor to the younger undergraduates or even the postdocs?
Well, you would have to ask them if I am such a good mentor. But if I think I have some good quality, I hope that it is that I'm try to be empathic and a good listener, and that I try to adjust to their needs, so that I can, as much as I can, guide them and advise them and try to grow them as scientists the best as I can. So I would say empathy, think, and I'm flexible to adjust to the different personalities so that I don't treat everybody in the same way. I'm very receptive about the way that they are and the needs that each one of them has. Or I try to.
Do you like always being busy?
Being busy is a little addictive in the sense that it sets a certain rhythm, increases your adrenaline. Sometimes when you stop, it's like, oh my God, what do I do now? But I'm also learning to enjoy the times when I'm not busy and I can recharge, enjoy the moment, do a little meditation, go in, do a little bit of reading, go and walk among trees and things like that. So that then when I get busy again, I have that energy and I can enjoy it without being overwhelmed by it. So being busy is okay if what you're doing are interesting things, but no question, from time to time you have to slow down and recharge.
I see. What's your hot take?
Remind me, what was that?
Hot take is a strong opinion that you have about something that could be controversial or not.
Right. I think one of my hot takes is my strong belief that education is the big social equalizer. That we have to give the opportunity of people to shine, to be educated, to be informed, to be knowledgeable, and that is going to improve their chances in life to live a fulfilling life, and to do things that are good for them and for others, to take good decisions, and get good jobs, and all the rest. So I believe very strongly that education should be accessible and high quality for everyone, no matter where you come from, where your family, your social, economical background. So that's why I think, for example, that the University of California has a very important role to play on all of this.
What's your hardest thing to give up?
Food and drink. Like right now, I spend about 9 months on what is called a sabbatical, where I was in Spain and Europe, and I did a lot of traveling, and I visited lots of places for conferences, to give seminars, to do research outside of my own lab. And in the process, I was sampling a lot the cuisine of the different places and the wines. And in the process, I put on some extra weight. I cannot fit in my clothes, but it is so hard to give up beautiful food like the one we have here in Berkeley. And that's hard. It's hard to give up.
I see.
So I try to, kind of slow down or just control it a little bit, but not giving up the the pleasure of just a good meal with some friends.
Yes. Can you cook, and what's the best thing that you can cook?
I'm a pretty decent cook, and I can do a variety of things from everywhere, particularly good at Spanish dishes because I learned them from my mom. So I make a really fantastic Spanish omelette following the recipe from my grandmother. I can do good paella, but I can do also lots of different stews. I love roasting, vegetables and non-vegetables also. I can do some Indian food, some Chinese food. So yeah, I love cooking. It gives you immediate satisfaction. It's not like science, which is more long-term. You have to invest a lot to see the fruit of your labor. But with food, you cook, you put it in front of your family, your friends, and they meet, and them and you immediately enjoy it. That's the kind of immediate satisfaction that that comes from cooking. And also it's just nurturing. It's very nurturing. It's kind of a way of caring for others. So yeah, I love cooking and doing it well so that it's a pleasure as well as nutritious.
I got you. So what is a scientific discovery that has not been discovered, in the past maybe 10, 20 years? We just don't know it, and if we find it, it would just change science forever.
But if we don't know it, how are you asking me what it is? I don't know. So, just during the time of my scientific career, which is about, 30 odd years, I've already been seeing some incredible new discoveries. So there is the discoveries just built slowly and progressively, and it's also very important, but it's also completely new fields that suddenly open up. And then it's like they open our mind to complete sections of biology that we were not aware of. And they're very difficult to predict, and sometimes they're encountered in a serendipitous way. But those unknowns, as someone would say, it is very hard to tell. There is some kind of interesting complexity that is built in biological systems because they're not designed by anybody. They just evolve through time, just based on random mutations and selection at the molecular and the organismal and species level. And that complexity, we try to understand and make sense of in the light of evolution, and try to, extrapolate rules. And in sometimes that is possible, and sometimes it's not, as I said, because they're not simple mechanisms. But I think every time we discover a new aspect that sheds light on everything else, we gain towards that more global understanding of how things evolve to make systems that are more complex, that are more robust, and that keep maintaining that capacity to evolve. So I do not know. I wish, if I knew what was the next thing, I would become very famous very fast because I would know where to go looking for it. But we just explore, we have questions, and hopefully some of us make those kind of quantum leap discoveries that really open up big, our minds and big areas of research and understanding.
So describe to us kind of your early childhood and how your parents instilled in you that education was of utmost importance.
Yeah, so you see, my parents grew up in post-Civil War Spain, and they were working class, and they had to start working very soon just to bring bread to the family. So they were not able to even go to high school. This was something that at the time was just given to the privileged classes. But from forever, they really thought that it was very important that what they were not able to have because of the circumstances there, the children were able to have. And for example, my father, who was a shepherd to start with, and then once he married my mother, was a truck driver, a local truck driver that worked on construction and things like that. Before my brother and I went to even kindergarten, he had taught us everything that he knew. So we went to kindergarten knowing how to read, how to write, how to add, subtract, multiply, divide. So we were kind of ahead. So everything that he could do for us, he did. Up to that point, he couldn't help us much more. But him and my mom, they just, they really have like the goal in their own lives to give my brother and I a college education. They wanted us to be educated, cultured, knowledgeable. They wanted us to have jobs better than them, white-collar jobs that of people that they looked up to. And my brother ended up being an engineer. I ended up being a physicist, and ultimately moving to biophysics and come all the way across the world to Berkeley to be a Berkeley professor. So imagine how very proud they are. And this is what they wanted. They wanted us to have the knowledge and the opportunities that they were not able to have. And they were prepared to sacrifice themselves in whichever way. You know, we would not have other things, but we would have brand new books, and you know, everything was made to facilitate that we have as much time as possible, you know, studying and moving forward in our careers. Yeah.
What's your next step?
Oh, my next step is just to continue being innovative and renewing myself in the kind of questions and the kind of technology that I use in my lab, to keep recruiting young scientists that work with me and then go on to have their own careers, and to enjoy both what goes on in my lab and in the lab of all those that have come through here, through Berkeley, and then have kind of expanded the reach of my own research capabilities by themselves being even better scientists than me, and continue that tradition of training new scientists and making contributions to our knowledge. So I'll continue doing that, hopefully enjoying what I do. In the meantime, continue taking risks and trying to do things that are innovative and hopefully inspiring and constructive to keep finding new things about how molecules work inside our cells.
Okay. Well, Dr. Nogales, I want to thank you for your interview. Thank you for meeting us again.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure as well.